90.1 FM, KKFI, Kansas City Community Radio. This is Changing Narratives with Brother Jay and Brother Brown in studio for another program. Want to welcome everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you are listening to us on 90.1 FM, I really appreciate you guys here in Kansas City. We got a long weekend. I'm so looking forward to it. And if you're listening to us on kkfi.org, wherever you are at, I hope you are having a wonderful weekend as well. Brother Brown, man, like you said, man, we got this long weekend.
Yes, sir.
I know we have chores and things like that we got to try to work in, man, but having that Monday off is looking lovely right about now.
Oh, absolutely. I got a couple of things that I'm going to knock off, but, again, it's like always that Saturday, like today, went fast. It's
yeah.
Get up, tool around, drink a cup of coffee, go to the gym, and now it's time for the radio show.
Yeah. Day's over.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to try to squeeze a few things in this evening, but like you said, this day has flown by, and I was able to get in a great workout, man. It's so important that we are taking care of ourselves. And I want to remind our audience, in the month of May, we are still in Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know for me, that is a part of my mental health therapy, if you will, getting to spend that time in the gym. And so, man, a couple of things, we're going to try to dive into a couple of topics this show. So much going on. This administration keeps us busy. And unlike what you're going to see on mainstream media, not going to spend a bunch of time talking about entertainment topics and people's sex lives when we have real issues.
Let's get salacious.
Yeah, that need to be addressed. And it's just like I said, man. It's just so disheartening when I know more about baby oil and all of that kind of stuff than I do about ICE agents showing up in different places around America with no IDs, with mask on.
I know. You just got on a
pair of jeans,
your load bearing equipment that says ICE, and I really keyed in on that just over the last couple of days is that we don't know who these people are.
No, and the idea of in several occasions where they're grabbing the parent and leaving underage children to fend for themselves just out on the streets. Forget your political view about immigration, but just the overall lack of humanity.
Exactly.
And that's the dangerous thing about what is taking place in our country. Just the overall, and let me say this, mainstream media and its focus, because there have been protests, all around the country where people are gathering and attempting to try to find a way to attack what is going on. But once again, these aren't the stories that are making it onto mainstream media. But having said that, just this sense of urgency that I think we need to have around all of these attacks on our institutions, all of these attacks on our fellow Americans, where
attacks on history,
but then at the same time becoming just more of a nation of grifters, where we will sell ourselves to whoever the highest bidder is, and all of this talk where we used to talk about American exceptionalism and the things that Americans create. What could be more of a slap in the face to American ingenuity than the President of the United States flying around on a plane from Qatar that the other nations turned down?
Yeah. Well, again, and what's interesting within that is that you'll say on this side, hey, you don't need that job, you don't need that health care, but in the same breath, you'll take a whole airplane.
Yeah, right, exactly. And to use the tax dollars to fit it, to have it to pass security and all this kind of stuff is going to be millions of dollars.
Right.
And then when he is ultimately out of office, it gets turned back over to him. And so just, one more thing that he and his family are doing to enrich themselves. But before we jump wholly into those kind of stories, man, I do kind of want to back up because I think it's important when we talk about what steps we can take as a community, how we all can make an impact on our children and the education that they're receiving. And so once again, with the work that you and Spark Bookhart are doing with your team in the RBI League, your Little League baseball team, and working with them and incorporating a math station into the baseball practices. I do want to keep our audience kind of updated on what that's looking like, because I think that that's so, it's innovative and it's important, and it goes aligned with what we've been talking about for the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Again, just always wanting to look for that duality in processes is key. And I think, again, as we're talking about being in these trying times where everybody is having to tighten up their belts, I think it's important that we look at what is the duality, what is the intrinsic and extrinsic gains in whatever we're doing.
Right.
From whether it's, you riding around in the car by yourself all the time, when, hey, I could be giving somebody else a ride. I'm not suggesting perfect strangers, but again, that's just that thing. I mean, again, I think about that all the time because I drive a Suburban. Like, this is a lot of vehicle for one person.
Just one person, right. But to the larger point.
Right, absolutely. We have to start looking at the duality in things and what overlaps. And so we were looking at that with the baseball team. Just to be practical, hands on the ground, we recognize that teachers are up to their ears with dealing with, how to educate this generation. And again, it's not all up to them.
Yes.
And if we see where we're having trouble spots, then we need to move in that direction. Again, all districts across the country are not only having problems trying to find just teachers in general, but in particular math teachers. And for grade school age teachers, they may not be the best at math. They may be good, well-equipped teachers,
right?
But they may not have been, the high flyer in math, and so their apprehensions and anxiety around math might rub off to the students, or their rigor with it might rub off with the students as well.
Right.
Again, the other piece that we get with me working at the library, so when we were rained out this Tuesday, we met at the Digital Media Lab.
Okay.
And so we had our chalk talk, and we were able to dig into the numbers a little bit more, as well as talking about the basic nuances of baseball, because again, we're talking about first, second, and third graders. And so now that becomes that next layer that we've added to this baseball team, where we've introduced the library to the team and to the parents in a very informal, different way that they hadn't thought about it.
Right. And that's one of the other things that I always want to make sure that we're mentioning in terms of a resource, the Digital Media Lab over at the Southeast Branch. Especially with the events that you guys have coming up for the summertime, and encouraging parents to make sure that they are staying engaged with their learner, and just how important, study after study, generation after generation has shown, especially with our black boys, how important that summer between 3rd and 4th grade is. And I think now, because of social media and the things that they have access to at a younger age, it's probably more so like 1st and 2nd grade now. That we really have to pay attention and making sure that they are equipped with the things that they need. Because you always make an important point, I think, when we're talking about a 6 or 7-year-old or 8-year-old, how are they responsible for their learning fully at that point?
Right.
At some point, an adult has failed them.
Exactly.
If they're not where they need to be.
Exactly, and that's the other piece. For those people that don't have the wherewithal, you have to find the resources to support. And again, going into summer, we all know that there's this thing called the summer slide.
Yes.
You start ramping down with the school year once you get towards testing, and then you never really get the motor going again. Now you have field day, you might have a trip to Worlds of Fun,
right?
And
That's about it.
The year begins to wind down, and so again, being able to check in with those grade level expectations from where they left, and then those grade level expectations of where they're going.
Right.
And again, just a couple, 2-3 times a summer, we think in Herculean efforts, if you just doing 15 minutes a day, hey, 15 minutes I want you to read in the morning, and then 15 minutes I want you to practice some math equations.
Yes.
That's 30 minutes in a day, but over the course of a summer, now
that adds up.
It adds up.
Yeah.
And they've gained or retained some skills that are significant for their success the next school year.
Right, and so back to numbers and the team that you've been dealing with and the young learners that you've been dealing with kind of consistently through the fall. Once again, I think a lot of times what happens, or what seems to happen with this generation, is it's an end-all, be-all.
Yeah.
And this is not to say that all of the kids have all of a sudden just become enthusiastic about math. And,
Exactly.
But so yeah, talk to us about realistically what is going on with the group that you've been working with.
So again, we want to be high flying, but at the same time, we still have to think about the containers that we're in.
Yes.
And so one of the exercises that we were doing when we were rained out for practice was coming up with math equations that equal their jersey number. Right.
Right.
And so just a simple exercise, we'll do some addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, doing it round robin where everybody's coming up with an equation. And so now we've made this thing more participatory.
Right.
And it's also landing on where you have a specific interest now. And so the next phase to that is that they're going to be able to choose a math equation that's going to go on the back of their jersey that equals their number.
Okay.
And so now that becomes that layer. And then what we'll do from there is that we'll have a sheet that we'll give to other kids that are just taking advantage of the game. And if you can calculate, or if you get everybody's equation and number down, then hit the field, then you'll be able to come over there and snack with our team, or have something that we'll have available just to incentivize the idea that you've been paying attention to what's out here.
Right. And also for our audience that doesn't know, one of the things that you talked about is they get note cards that they're responsible for.
Yeah, flashcards.
Flashcards,
yeah.
That they get. And so how is that being relative to, them showing some responsibility around that piece?
Absolutely, because we incentivize them bringing the cards to practice with the snack that we had.
Right.
We'll have some fruit, and then we'll have some granola bars and fruit snacks and stuff like that. So you'll always get a piece of fruit. But unless you got your flashcards, you don't get that next snack.
You don't get that
and
snack.
so luckily, there's only been like really one occasion where I didn't have to, where somebody didn't earn that snack based off of that. So it just becomes second nature, and they keep it with their baseball equipment. This doesn't go with your academic equipment. This goes with your baseball equipment.
Right.
And then just encouraging the parents to tell them just to pull them out when y'all in the car once or twice a week and just read through them.
Right.
On that 10-minute drive wherever you guys are going versus being stuck on the device.
Yeah, and like you said, helping to build that muscle memory for them, and just demystifying and like you said, taking away that sort of fear and anxiety that so many of us have around math.
And again, that's making them be responsible for their education in a small way.
Right.
Again, we have first, second, and third graders, so now we're introducing the multiplication concepts to our first graders, where they've just kind of skirted it. The same thing with the second graders. They're being introduced to it in a real way. Now, we're not banging them over the head with too much.
Right.
So again, right now at the phase that we are with it is to just kind of make math, the phrase is productive disposition, which is one of the 5 strands of math. And so that's basically having a positive outlook and an interesting, thoughtfulness about engaging math versus, we have to go to the tutoring station today.
Right.
It's not that.
Yeah.
And so again, we've had that big win with just making it where everybody is comfortable with engaging and it's not drudgery.
Right. And so when we talked last week, you had mentioned that along with that, the bats had come alive because you also want to compete while the kids are learning, because there's not a lot of fun in losing.
It's not.
You know what I'm saying? I don't care how much you want the kids to just have a good time.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of fun in just losing. And so, how you guys been doing so far?
So out the gate we're 4-0.
Oh, so.
We won our last game 12-0.
Oh, okay.
But again, we got to remember this is first, second, and third graders, and so
right. They gotta have some kind of mercy rule.
It is. The mercy rule is no more than 5 runs in an inning.
Okay.
So you can't. Once you do that, then you automatically got to switch to the outfield.
It's like, I don't know why they don't do that with basketball, because you always see 100 to 2 score.
Right.
Some 8-year-olds. It's like there's no mercy rule in some of the other sports.
It is.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, again, you have to be realistic and thoughtful too within that respect at this age, because it's still like recess and competition at the same time. And so again, we still have a lot to work, and I take for granted. Sometimes when we're kind of barking at the kids, you should have caught that one, you should have stopped that one.
Right.
You still never played baseball.
Right. Exactly. But man, we are actually up against our first break, so if you're just tuning in, you are listening to 90.1 FM, KKFI, Kansas City Community Radio. This is Changing Narratives with Brother Jay and Brother Brown, and we'll be back after this quick break.
Support for KKFI is provided by Brothers Liberating Our Community, presenting Soul Yoga Fest KC. Soul Yoga Fest serves all ages, ancestries, and abilities with the aim to make health and wellness more accessible for underrepresented groups by offering beginner-friendly classes for all ages and levels. Sunday, June 8th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Illis Davis Park, Kansas City, Missouri. For more information, go to artandyogaflow.com.
True Light Family Resource Center serves individuals and families providing for critical needs.
Hey, Mom. Oh. Come back bearing gifts.
Located at 712 East 30th.
All right, I'm gonna come back with this Joe sample and Layla Hathaway for a couple of minutes.
Real simple and live happily.
Yeah.
Little something.
Transitional housing, family clothes closet, food and breakfast program, computer
Where did I
access,
heard
law
that?
subjects, and much more. To learn more about True Light Family Resource.
Did she bring that in here for us?
Probably.
FRC.org. This message is a public service of KKFI.
Look what's happening in our fair city.
Huh?
Where is this at? Is that Truce?
No, that's downtown, down by Michael's, down the street, on Main Street.
Oh. What they got going on?
These,
A million flag march, American flag.
Oh, wow.
but it's, I think it's the mega people.
I'm
They're
sure.
got their faces covered up. So, I mean, why you cover up your face if you think what you're doing is okay?
That's what they do.
Ku Klux Klan, folk, Klan life.
Hashtag clan life.
I'm just saying. Yeah, in case you didn't notice.
That's what we do for fun.
When did this come out?
Man, when it came out in the 90s. Joe Sample and Layla Hathaway.
And what show did you say they used to play that on?
Probably early 2000s.
No.
You said what, Mama?
You said they used to play that on,
No, not this one.
oh, okay.
The one a long way from home.
Oh, that one. I really like that. I can live for some other. I'm aware of that.
So we're coming back with what exactly?
We'll come back. I'll kind of talk about just a lack of media coverage around, some of the important issues. And, we can kind of talk about that for a little bit.
I do want to just wrap up and mention summer reading.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, for sure. We'll come back with that. Now transition into, like you said, mainstream media and really lack of coverage. And then I'm going to go to the Trump and the South African president. Play that little clip. But yeah, that man, they got a whole CD. That's fire, man. Only thing, hey man, I'm gonna tell you, Queen Latifah's jazz CD she did, just like jazz standards. Cold, but you can't find it on other streaming services.
Oh. Thanks.
Yeah, you can't find it on other streaming services.
Gotta go back.
But no, you can go right here. You go right here.
Yeah. You always gotta remember what state we're in, Little Missouri.
Jay, your fans is out there covered in our popcorn.
Right. When I turned around, I was like, oh, I forgot what you look like.
And some is butter popcorn too.
Got about a minute on this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and fade it down. I'll wait till you take your swig.
Oh, no, I'm good. I picked up the wrong cup. We get this water.
.1 FM KKFI Kansas City Community Radio. That was One Day I'll Fly Away. Joe Sample and Layla Hathaway from their joint project that they did some years ago. One of my favorite projects that I like to relax to. Like I said, once again, One Day I'll Fly Away. And if you are just tuning in, this is Changing Narratives with Brother Jay and Brother Brown. And before we went to break, Brown, we were talking about numbers and just some of the success that you guys are having incorporating the math into your baseball practices, and also some of the resources that you guys were able to kind of give the parents access to because you guys were rained out over at the Digital Media Lab. And so we kind of briefly mentioned with summer coming up, but want to go back and talk about the summer reading program that is available through the library.
And so again, summer reading at the Kansas City Public Library kicks off May 31st. We'll be at the Southeast branch with our summer reading kickoff with our carnival-like experience from 12 to 3. Go to kcpubliclibrary.org and you can see every branch is going to have a summer reading kickoff. So again, that's where you can get a free book that day. Read 5 books over the summer and you get a summer reading prize. So I encourage everybody just to take advantage of the library. you're wondering, you know, what to do. You got kids in town, like how we used to go visit our cousins in St. Louis. And
Right.
you know, you got a bunch of kids in town. Just bring them to the library, have them find a book, or it might be some interesting story times or other activities. So again, we also have the Kansas City Zoo coming in, and they'll bring in, you know, like a lizard or tarantula,
Right.
you know, different animals that the kids can actually handle. Some of them are touch, you know, depending on what it is. We'll have there's a magician that we're going to bring in, Reggie Reg, the Magic Man.
Okay.
And so we're going to have magic. So those are going to be just 2 different events that we'll have at the branch. So just check us out, kclibrary.org, Southeast Branch, or the Kansas City Digital Media Lab on Facebook. Either one of those that will get you there. But be sure to check out all of the branches, not just what's happening at the Southeast.
Yeah, we have lots of dynamic work going on in the Kansas City public library system all around the city. And so it's wild. You know, we are kind of at the forefront in the nation when we talk about resources at our public libraries. And so I always want to encourage you guys to take advantage of those resources. And so we are now about 32 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. And if you're just tuning in, you are listening to 90.1 FM KKFI Kansas City Community Radio. And here at Changing Narratives, we are just one of the many voices over here at KKFI where you get the opportunity to hear some a little bit more in-depth coverage on some stories that you're not getting in mainstream media. And as corporate media continues to grow in its influence in so many of these markets where you hear the same cookie cutter stories on the radio, or if you happen to be watching one of the larger networks or the cable networks, you see they start, you know, they focus on the same sorts of stories. And so, you know, I alluded to a little bit earlier, just all of the coverage that this whole P. Diddy mess is getting, and when we have very real world issues that could be focused on, whether it be on a national level or in these communities, and it's just so much time that is spent on what is salacious. And so, you know, it's just really disappointing, but all that more important that those of us that have a voice on these sort of spaces, that we use this to, you know, like I said, focus on some of the things that are really, really impactful and important for our community.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely, but again, and that's that thing, and that's why KKFI is so important.
Right.
Because it does allow for a breadth of different perspectives that are not tied to dollars.
Yes.
And so people tend to be able to speak freely. Again, that's what I appreciate about Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman and Juan Gonzalez, is that they do not cover things based off of them having to answer to higher ups.
Right, yes, absolutely.
And so you're able to have those features. You're able to have those deeper dives. You're able to have people that are not tied to the establishment, the traditional government ways, as well as the traditional media ways. So, again, kudos to KKFI for broadcasting Democracy Now! Since the late '90s.
Yes, and like you said, Amy Goodman and Juan Gonzalez do really, really great work and provide a vantage point that you don't get very many places. And so we're going to jump into this story, of course, with our president and the meeting that he had with the president of South Africa. And, once again, the debacle that it turned into. So we have some sound from PBS News and their coverage of it. And so we'll play a little bit of that sound, and then we'll come back and have a discussion about that. And so, let me get that together.
The Oval Office today as President Trump met with South Africa's president and unexpectedly played videos that Mr. Trump said proved his allegations that South Africa is committing genocide against white farmers there. The South African delegation pushed back, denying the debunked claim. Here's Nick Shipman.
What do you think
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa took a leap of faith.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans.
Convinced he could change President Trump's mind on live TV.
It will take President Trump to listen to them.
At first, he was ambushed.
Turn the lights down and put this up, it's right behind you.
President Trump used videos of radical South African politicians calling for racist violence. And newspaper clips
Death, death, death.
to back up his claim of genocide against white farmers, dozens of whom recently arrived in the U.S. as refugees.
They're taking people's land away, and in many cases, those people are being executed.
At first, Ramaphosa appealed to facts. South Africa's parliament includes small, radical parties who aren't in government. And white Afrikaners, an ethnic minority that created and led the now defunct apartheid regime, are being killed alongside black farmers because of crime, not racism, according to police data.
When they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
Nothing happens.
there is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people.
At that point, things could have fallen apart, like they did with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Zelensky left his Oval Office train wreck without the deal he came to sign.
This is going to be great television, I will say that.
Ramaphosa could have appealed to gifts.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
But he kept the mood light and brought his own trump cards. South African golf champion Ernie Els, who's played with...
There's a lot of coexistence going on. And
All right, I'm gonna fade this
help
down.
from a lot of areas. But I feel we need the US to push this thing through.
and South Africa's richest man, Johan Rupert.
Remember, sir, you and I lived in New York in the 70s. We never thought New York would be what it became. We've got gang warfare, like your M33 Washington East Side. We've got equivalents there, but we need your help, sir.
And you're listening to 90.1 FM KKFI Kansas City Community Radio. And that was some sound from PBS News and their coverage of the joint press conference that President Trump had with South Africa's president, and the way in which he ambushed him around the so-called genocide taking place with the white South Africans. And, it's just, like the kids say, playing in our face. When
Right.
we talk about what is taking place in Palestine and the absolute genocide that is taking place there, and our implicit and complicit ways in said genocide.
Right.
And once again, picking people up off the street with masks and no warrants on the one hand because we're being invaded, but then to put these 60 South Africans on a plane and bring them over here, because they're in such danger. It's just like you
Right.
said, just playing in our face.
When people from sub-Saharan Africa have been taking the perilous journey across the Mediterranean for years, trying to reach Europe, trying to reach Italy, trying to reach Spain, trying to reach France, and have been losing their lives by the droves. I mean, literally, whole boats of migrants trying to cross from Libya to Southern Europe.
Right.
And they're all on the journey, and they've been sold a boat that the people that sold it to them knows it doesn't have the fortitude to cross.
Right, absolutely.
But what they're counting on is that the Coast Guard from those other countries is going to pick them up.
Yes, right.
and so again, there's been a perilous situation for a lot of people for quite some time. But now, for whatever reason, you see fit for these particular South Africans.
Yeah, absolutely.
To help them out and help their cause.
Yeah. Yeah, so, once again, they're just one of many stories and just hypocrisy that is taking place with this administration. And so, man, we are actually up against our second break. So if you're just tuning in, you are listening to 90.1 FM KKFI, Kansas City Community Radio. This is Changing Narratives with Brother Jay and Brother Brown, and we'll be back
So
after
he got
this
like
break.
14 kids.
And his trans daughter that he don't like to talk about.
Bold and Gold KC Pride Fest celebrates 50 years of Pride, June 6th, 7th, and 8th at Feast Park in Kansas City, Missouri, bringing visibility, celebration, and support to Kansas City's LGBTQ+ community. You can learn more at kcpride.org. This is a public service announcement of KKFI.
Okay, hold on. Oh man, my second CLA man.
You said what now?
My second spot didn't play. I have to work that back in after this.
You got it up though?
Is
No.
it underwriting or what is it?
Yeah, it's underwriting.
Yeah, well, you definitely.
That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
I'm like, they had loaded all this stuff up in here.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm gonna fade this down, then I gotta play this 30-second spot, and then I'm gonna come back to it.
Excuse me.
What does this keep saying? Memo. So, that underwriting spot won't play.
Where is it?
That's what the problem is. Oh, that's not the right one. Okay. But see, that's the thing, so it's got a different code though, underwriting code. Hold on. See, yeah, that one ain't even in here.
Community Lending of America?
It's
CLA? That's Community Lending of America.
Let's try. But see, so let me show you. So when you do the
But
CLA,
you know, but you put in title. See, you got, okay, you put in title. Just do CLA.
and that's what I'm saying. That's the spot. But if you see, but it's a different number. See, that one says 394. This one is 414. Excuse me.
But you know what, Jay?
But see what I'm saying is,
I would play it anyway.
you
because-
can't play it. That's what I'm saying. It's just memo. See how it has no start.
Okay,
So, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But you know what? Then I'll make a
Yeah.
note to Chad.
Yeah.
Make a note to him.
Yeah, because that underwriting spot don't exist.
Well, just make a note to him.
Yeah. Okay, shit.
5.
And you're listening to 90.1 FM KKFI, Kansas City Community Radio. This is Changing Narratives with Brother Jay and Brother Brown. And that was a song that will live on by Joe Sample on the same project with Joe Sample and Layla Hathaway. Like I said, one of my favorite projects. And today feels like a kind of a jazzy day here in Kansas City.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It's not too hot, not too warm, but still a cool day. So, and like I said, that project fits perfectly. But before we went to break, we had kind of spent a little bit of time on the story with Trump and the South African president.
Poor people.
So I want to kind of play some sound from then. Part of that sound was where the South African president mentioned, him not having a gift of a plane to give to Trump, and Trump was like, "Ooh, I wish you did have one."
Then I have two.
Right, I'd take it. And so CBS News did a story on Trump accepting the plane from Qatar. So we're gonna play a little bit of that sound, and then we'll discuss it when we come back. Well, hold on just 1 second, Brian. Thought I had it queued up.
Just get on the air.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And then,
Yes.
What's her name? Pamela Bondi.
Uh-huh.
She was a lobbyist expressly for the state of Qatar, making around $100,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have the sound.
So she was like, "No, there's nothing wrong with this."
This is perfectly normal.
And the woman,
Air Force One. The Pentagon
One
saying it's
that
officially
woman
accepting
that,
the luxury jet.
they were
Big security upgrades.
talking about AI,
The
she was
lawmakers
calling
from
it
both sides of
A1.
the aisle raising concerns about the gift.
Yesterday, he brought home a $400 million jumbo jet from the monarch dictator of Qatar, a flying constitutional violation packed with threats of espionage and surveillance.
The president once called Qatar a funder of terror, but now has a closer relationship, visiting the country on his Middle East trip. Yesterday in the Oval Office, the president defending the move.
It's a great thing.
While his guest, South Africa's president, joked about the gift.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did.
And you're listening to 90.1 FM KKFI, Kansas City Community Radio. And that was some sound from CBS News and their coverage of Trump and him accepting the gift from Qatar. And like I said, we talked about it on this program since he was re-elected. All of the attacks on what is normal. And to hear the other side or folks on his side attempt to justify why this is okay for anyone that grew up in this country, we understand how relationships evolve, but it's just like, this is ridiculous.
Absolutely. And to think that somebody will give you $400 million and have no expectations of anything in return.
Mm-hmm.
It's just laughable at best.
Right. Yes.
know.
And like you said, just playing in our face, and for once again, you would never ever normalize this sort of behavior under any other administration or any other president. When we talk about when Barack Obama was elected and him leading the charge about his birth certificate and and folks acting as if, Barack was going to have this African delegation, at the White House, just giving them whatever they wanted,
Right.
and,
And he wore a bathing suit.
reshaping this country. And so it's just like, and so to allow this kind of grifting to take place, it's just the height of the hypocrisy.
Absolutely, and again, as the saying goes, you know how they like to say that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Right.
It would be different if we're watching your tide rise.
Oh.
But the tide, from the tariffs and the like, is definitely, again, squeezing the general public. And so, again, that's the bigger slap in the face to me, is that you can clearly see that Americans are having a hard time economically.
Yes.
And then you will not only take this gift, but you will also host an event.
Yes.
And bring in all of the major investors for your crypto bucks.
Yes.
And so I was listening to a piece, and it said that Trump has made 40% of his current wealth since he's been president.
Yes, and he's trying to add to it every day, and like you said, and in the same time telling people to be patient, and there's going to be a little bit of pain, and
right.
Now the stock market, when it looked like it was doing well, this is his economy. Now it's like, hey, this is still Biden's economy.
Right.
And like you said, it's just we have to remain diligent as a community and understand what is actually taking place, but then also taking some accountability and responsibility for the things that we can control. And so, having the opportunity to once again have the discussion that we had earlier on, talking about the work that you and Spark are doing with young people, those are ways that we all can contribute and fight back in our own way.
Absolutely, because we're going to have to, as we can see, if with the current administration, they don't want to have the responsibility of actually governing and provide people with resources to make sure that you have a healthy society. And so we're going to have to start making sure that all of those things are taken care of at the local level.
Right.
With hopes that we can get some federal dollars to do what we've been doing for so long. But again, there's no sector that has went untouched as it relates to budget cuts, personnel cuts, and the like. And we haven't really even seen the real reverberations behind all of those loss in government jobs. Again, because we don't know what didn't get done because you fired the person that was to do it and the person that was going to oversee it.
Yes.
So
right, like you said, everything's nailed to a hammer.
Right. Right.
Again,
and just that thing where you might walk up to a door and be like, man, who left this door propped open? Not knowing that it was propped open for a reason. Because, you just didn't see it at the time. And so, again, that's that whole mentality with all of these sweeping cuts. Again, you're taking money from universities, you're taking money from libraries. And see, once again, that effect to an urban library like the Kansas City Public Library that receives its money from the city and property taxes, it doesn't affect us the same way that it does rural libraries that are being subsidized at a greater level from the state and from the feds.
Right.
And so they cut that money too. So
yeah, and that's always the misnomer when we talk about the way in which federal dollars are allocated. There's always this perception of this welfare queen.
Right.
But the reality of it is when we talk about those rural communities and how dependent they actually are on whether it be federal assistance or state assistance.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, and to continuously vote against their own self-interest.
Exactly. I don't know the exact numbers, but they talk about the discrepancy between what blue state California pays in versus red state Alabama pays into the federal coffers versus what they get back from the federal government.
Yeah, absolutely. Even like a state like Alaska, where you talk about 60 to 70% of the population receive some sort of assistance.
Yeah.
You know, it's like those dollars don't just magically appear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but man, we are going to have to get wrapped up here. So we are now about 5 minutes before the top of the hour. So please stay tuned at 6 o'clock for Roots Wise Reggae. Lady D is sitting in, so I know it's going to be a great, great show. And before we get wrapped up here, I want to remind everyone that Marcus talked about the summer reading program that is available at the Kansas City Public Library. Make sure that we are continuing to stay engaged with our young learners and making sure that we are staying informed ourselves.
Absolutely.
Taking that responsibility to get off of the internet, you know, or get off of TikTok and do some real research on a particular topic. You know?
Absolutely. Especially before we go post about it.
Right. Exactly. So, man, we are going to get up out of here. I want to remind everyone once again, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. A few of the things, you know, that were talked about in one of the segments we played was just making sure that you are getting enough rest. Something as simple as that when we talk about anxiety and stress, making sure that you are resting. One of the things that I've tried to incorporate is gratitude. It's finding something in your life that you are grateful for and focusing on that. And so I want to encourage our audience to, once again, make sure that you are taking care of yourself mentally first and foremost. And then that helps you be kind to others, which we all need to work on, especially with what is going on in our society right now. So we're going to get up out of here. We'll be back next week with another program. Brother Brown, I'm sorry. Anything you wanted to say before we get up out?
Just again, have a safe holiday weekend. You know, they got the saturation patrols out, have for about a week now. Mm-hmm. And so just be careful. Ounce of prevention, you know, go a long way. Again, Memorial Day, so just want to, you know, remember those soldiers that, you know, gave up their lives so that we could have Donald Trump as president.
No, and I'm glad that you did bring that back up, like you said, bring that up rather. We definitely want to say thank you for to our veterans, and like you said, hope everyone has a safe Memorial Day weekend and enjoys that time with your family. And like we'll be back next week with another program.
Hi, I'm Russ Simmons.
And I'm Susan Sanders.
And this is Take Two takes of a movie currently playing in theaters or streaming. The Brazilian political drama I'm Still Here from acclaimed filmmaker Walter Salles won this year's Oscar for Best International Feature. It's now available on Netflix.